Every year, thousands of movies and documentaries are filmed, each one made by someone with a clear idea in mind. But what happens when, right in the middle of that shoot, the camera catches a crime? That's today's story. And no, it's not a fake documentary like Paranormal Activity or the Blair Witch Project. This one is real. It's about an artist who only wanted to film his favorite musician, but ended up uncovering a tragedy hidden by the mafia. A secret that followed him for over 30 years and ended up costing him his life. Today, we're talking about Street of Dreams. To talk about Street of Dreams, we need to go to Australia and meet the person this whole story is about, Martin Sharp. In the early 70s, he was a big name in Australia's pop art scene. He made posters and helped start the underground magazine, Oz. He was also close to the music world. He became friends with Eric Clapton, wrote songs for Cream, and even drew the covers for some of their most famous albums. Like many great artists, Sharp was talented, bold, rebellious, and never really satisfied. In 1968, he wrote, "I need to be possessed by something bigger than me," and that something showed up, but it turned into a long, dark, and unpredictable journey. Sharp's life changed for good in 1973 when he was contacted by the people at Luna Park. The park had opened back in 1935 and was the most popular amusement park in Sydney. Its name came from the Luna Park in Coney Island, and its most famous feature was Mr. Luna, a giant smiling face at the entrance. For years, families went there to ride the games and spend the day, but by the early 70s, it had lost its appeal. Fewer people showed up, and many saw it as old and out of style. So the new owners decided to turn things around. They took out the old rides, brought in new ones, and gave the park a fresh look. That's when they brought in Sharp and gave him full freedom to redesign the whole place in his own style. Sharp got excited about the job. He started by repainting Mr. Luna, then worked on the rides. The one that impressed him most was the Ghost Train, one of the oldest and most popular in the park. It had a recorded voice on loop saying, "The scariest ride of your life," followed by, "You'll shake and shake on the Ghost Train." Curious as always, Sharp couldn't resist. He climbed into one of the little cars. He went in through a sign that said, "Gate to Hell," and soon was riding through a dark tunnel full of twists, with skeletons, a weird ape-like monster, Count Dracula, and even a dragon's head popping out of the shadows. A bunch of fake scares that would later be replaced by something truly terrifying. After revamping the entire park, Sharp was proud of what he'd done, and the owners were just as pleased. The connection between them stayed strong, and that bond ended up inspiring Sharp to take on something completely different from anything he'd done before. Sharp's return to the park was driven by one person, the singer Tiny Tim. He was from the US and had become famous in the 60s thanks to his wide vocal range and strange, over-the-top personality. At the time, he was admired by big names like Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan. But in the 70s, his career started to fall apart. Trying to get attention, he got married live on TV and even spoke in favor of the Vietnam War. None of it worked. People didn't take him seriously anymore. They saw him as a joke. Sharp, unlike most people, was a true fan of Tiny Tim. In the mid-70s, he got in touch with him and they became friends. Sharp brought him to Australia several times. They spent time together, sometimes relaxing, sometimes creating. He not only celebrated his music, but also made portraits of him in different styles. Sharp was completely fascinated by Tiny Tim, and he decided to turn that into a documentary. It would focus on his personal life, his deep faith in Christ, and even his most private side. But Sharp didn't want it to be just any concert film. He wanted to build it around a special event. His idea was to organize a singing marathon. Tiny Tim asked him where he planned to pull off something that big, and Sharp already had the answer: Luna Park. His strong relationship with the park's owners helped him get permission right away. To stay in full control, he chose to pay for the project himself. In no time, everything was ready to start filming the documentary about Tiny Tim, a film Sharp named Street of Dreams. The singing marathon at Luna Park was set for January 19th, 1979. Sharp recorded every part of Tiny Tim's performance, along with a few moments before the show. Tiny Tim proved he was still worthy of his legend, captivating the audience with a show that lasted 2 hours and 17 minutes, a true record. Sharp was thrilled with Tiny Tim, but as usual, it didn't feel like enough. He wanted the documentary to also be a tribute to Luna Park, its rides, its spaces, and its spirit. He had his camera crew film the attractions, like the Ghost Train, and the happy crowds enjoying the day. By the end of that day, Sharp had tons of footage. The next step was post-production, and in just a few months, he could shape Street of Dreams into a finished film. But that Street of Dreams was about to lead straight into a nightmare. On the night of June 9th, 1979, Sharp was almost done with the first cut of the film when he saw the news and was shocked. The Ghost Train at Luna Park, the same one he had helped redesign, had gone up in flames. Reports said there were around 35 people inside when smoke started coming out of the tunnel entrance. The few staff members at the park rushed to help and tried to get people out. Firefighters arrived a few minutes later, but when they hooked up the hoses, they found the water pressure was too low. It took hours to put out the flames. 7 people died in the fire, 1 adult and 6 children. The ghost train tragedy deeply impacted Australian society, but no one took it harder than Sharp. He stayed glued to every update. Luna Park was shut down right away, and the coroner's court opened an investigation. In September 1979, the coroner said they couldn't figure out what had caused the fire. Even the explanations from some technicians who pointed to possible wiring problems weren't enough. But one thing did come out. 2 years earlier, the park's owners had refused to install an emergency sprinkler system for that ride. Still in shock, Sharp had a sudden thought. He started to believe there was some kind of link between the fire and Tiny Tim's singing marathon, or at least that the accident needed to be part of the project. In the years that followed, Sharp became obsessed with the ghost train fire. He gathered piles of newspaper and magazine clippings and recorded radio and TV interviews. He would lock himself in his house for days, going through everything. But it still wasn't enough, so he started doing his own interviews, talking to safety experts and some of the survivors. He stored all his research in a huge room he had painted yellow, blue, and pink. He went from filmmaker to detective. The time and effort meant spending more money, but he still had some savings left. After many sleepless nights, Sharp came to a disturbing conclusion. The ghost train fire had been set on purpose, and he had someone in mind, Abe Saffron. But who was this man? In the 1970s in Australia, Abe Saffron was a businessman who owned nightclubs, hotels, and real estate. But everyone knew the truth. He was the most feared mobster in the country, Australia's own Al Capone. Sharp found out that years before the fire, Saffron had tried to buy Luna Park. He made the offer to Ted Hopkins, the park's previous owner, who refused to sell. That's why, according to Sharp, Saffron may have planned the fire to take control of the land. Rumors said he hired 5 bikers to do the dirty work. For this twisted plan, Saffron supposedly had help from the police and even from Neville Wran, the Premier of New South Wales. Sharp was sure his theory was right, but he didn't have any proof to back it up, and if the police were part of the plan, reporting it could be too risky. Even so, he believed the truth was hidden inside Street of Dreams, and he wanted the documentary to be the way to tell that story. As he kept working on the edit, he also stayed alert to any news about Saffron. His name often showed up linked to all kinds of crimes, including arson. Still, no one had ever been able to prove he was involved in anything, at least not yet. Sharp's obsession with the mystery behind Street of Dreams started to worry the people around him, especially Tiny Tim. In 1988, almost 10 years after the documentary was filmed, the singer met with Sharp to ask what was going on with him in the movie. Sharp told him he was still working on it, trying to finish a version that showed his thoughts and feelings about the tragedy. Tim said it would be a good idea to show part of the film, and he had the perfect place in mind, the Brighton Festival, a popular arts event in the UK. Sharp didn't feel ready, but Tim kept insisting. He was still going through a hard time in his career, and even an unfinished film might bring him back some attention. To help his friend, Sharp put together a version and called it the Brighton Cut. The screening at the festival was attended by Tiny Tim, who was amazed to see the theater completely full. The audience went wild over the strange mix of a classic documentary and surreal scenes, where happy moments slowly turned into something dark and disturbing. A few hours later, the musician answered questions from the press and the crowd. He pointed out that people weren't just drawn to his legendary image. They also knew that Street of Dreams was still a work in progress, and that it was slowly wearing Sharp down. He said his friend had made a cult movie, and that at most, it would survive as something to be shown in a museum. Thanks to the attention it got at the Brighton Festival, Street of Dreams, or more accurately, the Brighton Cut, started getting invited to film festivals around the world. It had a long run between the late 80s and early 90s. The buzz around this strange, unfinished movie also caught the interest of TV stations, and it was soon shown on channels in both Australia and the United States. The film's reach made Tiny Tim happy, but not Sharp. In 1989, he agreed to do an interview with the musician for the Sydney Morning Herald. He made it clear from the start, the Brighton Cut wasn't Street of Dreams. He said the full version already had a structure. It just needed the middle part to flow better between the beginning and the end. Tiny Tim added that the final version should focus on the ghost train tragedy. Even he, who needed the film to help bring his career back, was more interested in the dark side of the story. But despite what they said, Sharp couldn't stop the press and film fans from calling it a cursed movie. While he kept working on Street of Dreams, Sharp lost contact with Tiny Tim. Back in the US, the singer played some shows and caught the attention of some new bands. That's how his life went until November 1996, when he died of a heart attack at 64. Without his friend and main source of inspiration, Sharp got completely caught up in Street of Dreams. a film that had already spent 20 years in the editing room. In the early 2000s, Sharp was still editing the film. By then, he had spent almost all his money and was spending most of his time alone. In the room he had set aside for the movie, he kept piles of court files, government papers, newspaper clippings, and photos. He also filled many boxes with cassette tapes, radio recordings about the fire, and conversations or thoughts from people who had info or theories about the tragedy. For years, Sharp's obsession with Street of Dreams was as strong as his addiction to smoking. So no one was shocked when he was diagnosed with emphysema. In his final years, he needed an oxygen tube to breathe. Even in that condition, he kept trying to work on the documentary. But his body and mind gave out on December 1st, 2013. He was 71. With no creator or guiding voice, the film was left unfinished and seemed on its way to being forgotten. But the opposite happened. The Brighton Cut, once just a rough version, started spreading through bootleg copies, and the mystery behind the project sparked tons of online debates that even helped move the case forward. The material Sharp had collected was given to ABC, a major TV network in Australia. In 2021, it became a key piece for a team led by journalist Caro Meldrum Hanna, who made Expose the Ghost Train Fire. This investigative documentary looks into the ghost train fire at Luna Park. It doesn't mention Sharp or Street of Dreams, but it confirmed what he had believed. Saffron, the Australian mob boss, had planned the fire with support from the police and Premier Neville Wran. The ones who carried it out were the bikers people had talked about for years. By then, the former premier had died in 2014, so no legal action could be taken. After so many years of mystery, Expose the Ghost Train Fire seemed to do what Sharp had spent decades trying to achieve with Street of Dreams. But several political figures in New South Wales accused ABC and Caro Meldrum Hanna of exaggerating the claims. That led to new investigations in 2024, but nothing came of them. The mystery of the ghost train still hangs in the air, like a ghost that won't go away. Street of Dreams was meant to celebrate a musician in a theme park, but it ended up buried under the weight of a painful and unsolved event. It's proof that creative projects can grow beyond the people who start them, and that even an unfinished film can have a unique power and raise chilling questions.